VoicePod is a comprehensive home automation speech solution with a large number of features and possibilities for configuration. This video describes the control for programming and configuration basics. The first step is to verify that the drivers are installed and connected properly. Click on the VoicePod driver under the Connections tab. Each VoicePod driver should have a connection to the single VoicePod Global Properties driver as shown. Next, go to the Driver Properties tab and select the Read All Properties from this VoicePod under the VoicePod Properties drop-down list. This will sync the driver properties with the physical VoicePod settings. If the settings do not update, VoicePod is not communicating over Zigbee and may not be properly joined and identified. We will now take a moment to highlight some of the more important properties. If you want to disable Hello VoicePod hands-free triggering, set hands-free mode to disable. Users can still press the talk button to start a session in this mode.
How may I help you?
Lights bright.
Lights bright.
The default hands-free trigger phrase is Hello VoicePod normal. You can try the forgiving version or even Hello Blue Genie if the VoicePod has trouble recognizing the default hands-free trigger when spoken by your end user. Hello Blue Genie.
How may I help you?
Good night.
Good night.
Audio output allows you to specify whether VoicePod's audio response should play through the integrated speaker, line out, or both. Microphone sensitivity is set to high as default and should work well in most cases. If users interacting with VoicePod will tend to be very close to the VoicePod, for example next to you on a desk or at the end of the table, near may be a more appropriate setting. Please note VoicePod has a built-in automatic gain control, which will adjust the microphone to a user's specific volume after repeated uses. If the VoicePod does not respond on the first try, train your user to try again at the same speaking volume. If you have two or more VoicePods installed within earshot of each other, turn on our patented multi-device coordination feature to prevent more than one VoicePod from answering when the Hello VoicePod hands-free trigger phrase is spoken. It may be necessary to bump up the coordination latency time for slower Zigbee networks to give the VoicePods adequate time to coordinate with each other. Otherwise, disable this feature to improve speed. The Start menu property defines which list of valid commands VoicePod is expecting after wake-up. It is set to Main Menu Advanced by default. The Standard menu has fewer commands with excellent recognition. Main Menu Advanced enables more main menu commands and sub-menu links. Be sure to give your users a cheat sheet so they know what commands you have configured for them. The start sound is a response played after VoicePod hears the hands-free trigger phrase. Advanced users will prefer a simple tone such as tone 1 after they are comfortable using the VoicePod. Hello VoicePod. Secure house.
Secure house.
The confirmations property tells VoicePod whether to confirm all recognized commands, only commands it isn't confident about, mid-confidence, or none. The none setting essentially tells VoicePod to proceed with its best guess as to what the user said in all cases. Sticky menus is an advanced feature that, when enabled, will restart the last submenu that the user was in if the VoicePod is activated again within a few minutes of the previous command. Hello VoicePod.
Ready.
Security.
Security control. Ready.
Arm night.
Arm night.
Hello VoicePod.
Security control. Ready.
Close gate.
Close gate.
Hello VoicePod.
Security control. Ready.
Main menu.
Main menu.
The custom command training and recorded messages properties are used to train and manage speaker-dependent custom commands and responses. This will be covered in more detail in a separate video. Input a valid U.S. zip code to enable weather reporting features for this location. Select an associated thermostat and an associated security system to enable thermostat control and security status reporting features without the need for custom programming. If enabled, the default remote action setting will send on-screen navigator and remote control commands to the room VoicePod is in automatically. If discrete muting is available for audio in the room, enable VoicePod's auto mute feature to automatically mute the room during voice recognition sessions. Auto source toggle device, audio output delay, and audio debounce will all be covered in a separate video discussing VoicePod invisible control and rack mounting options. The mobile properties will be covered in an upcoming video once the VoicePod mobile app is released. For complete details on any of the properties, you can also refer to the documentation tab or visit voicepod.com/techdocs. Programming VoicePod events is just like setting up a Control-4 keypad. Simply click on the Programming tab, select the VoicePod, and pick an event to program such as Good Night. When the user speaks a command, your custom programming for that associated event will be executed. Many useful VoicePod commands are available under the Device-Specific Command dropdown on the right side of the screen in the Programming Actions pane in Composer. These commands can be used to tell the VoicePod to speak announcements using its sound library or text-to-speech. Commands can also be used to trigger on-the-fly VoicePod speech recognition in response to external events such as contact closures or keypad button presses. For advanced VoicePod programming techniques such as these, please view our VoicePod Advanced Control 4 programming video.